welcome to this week's episode of Strategy Honestly. This is a series where we try to explain the main concept and tools used in strategic work and give some helpful tips what to use and when to use. My name is Janne, and with me I have Pyry and Per, and we will be the host.
Right, and the prior episode we discussed about the SWOT analysis, and we were pretty critical on its usefulness. Today we have Porter's 5 forces, or as someone called the helicopter model. And yeah, what do you think?
Well, I mean, this is a well-known framework. Pretty much every university student has probably seen it. Some might think that this framework's been around forever, but in fact it was published in 1980s. And that's interesting because it also shows that business strategy in its formalized form really started to get shaped that late, in the history.
And right, and all that happened at the same time when a profession linked to this emerged. And yes, I'm meaning the strategy consultants.
Right, so actual formalized strategy consultants, where they're focusing really on strategy and strategy concepts, that's a fairly recent phenomenon. And if you want to learn more about this, I would recommend Keitel's Lords of Strategy. I mean, it has an excellent overview of how this profession developed, how the frameworks developed, and it also provides some critical perspectives on all these industries around the strategy. I don't only mean strategy consultants, but also the business books and all the hoopla that goes around it.
Yeah, right. Okay, but to start the discussion on the 5 forces, I've made this slide. And here on this slide, the 5 forces are illustrated. What you can see on the center part is the competition dynamics of the industry. Then there's the bargaining power of suppliers meeting the bargaining power of customers. Then on the another axis, we have the threat of new entrants. Those are met by potential new products or services and technology. What is all actually illustrated here is the extended version of the 5 forces, which then also adds into the mix the macroeconomic factors, regulation, customer preferences, and also technology. So a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, I hope that you were able to follow. But let's start with our hot question. Is this framework MECE?
Well, when this framework was made, as Per pointed out, that industries back then were a bit more static. And what it tries to describe, I would say it's fairly MECE, kind of a stable industries value chain. But when we look at the industries today, where there is, for example, a strong codependence between different players, or ecosystems play a big role, I don't know if it's then such a simple case. And then there's also cases where the core processes, which were once viewed as kind of core of the company, can be outsourced, or then even the data itself of that is driving the company's success is not controlled or even owned by the company, like in, for example, SaaS solutions. So yes, it's MECE, but not as well kind of equipped to describe the modern industries.
Right. So this framework works when competition is, or your competitive position is based on structural advantage, and also when the relationship between the players is arm's length. So from that perspective, it better works for traditional industries which have a lower degree of uncertainty, and to some extent are a little bit stable as well.
Well, to approach this systematically, we usually use a couple of templates and fill them. And it's easiest to start with the big picture, drawing trends and implications from the macro level, from the 4 external factors, which are the macroeconomics, customer preferences, technologies, and regulation. And the first version can be easily done using some desktop analysis, and that will help you when you go deeper in the substance.
Right. And after that, I think it makes sense to take a look at the value chain and start filling that part. And I actually made a slide illustrating that, where we have a bit of a time frame observation as well, and then also the assessment of uncertainty in the mix of it all.
And next, we need similar framework for the new entrants and new technologies. But here again, like the main thing is to draw implication and really understand what the findings actually mean to our strategy.
I think one piece that we're still missing is the middle part, the important part, so the dynamics, the competition dynamics in the industry. And do you have a recommendation how we could tackle that part?
Well, competition in the industry is a topic for which there is an analysis called structure, conduct, and performance, and it fits perfectly for this use. The challenge with that one is that it's a little bit tricky to apply, so we'll probably cover that in our next episode, and we'll sort of focus here on the surrounding pieces.
Yeah, sounds good. But synthesize this week's the main message. What we want to say is that Porter is still relevant when it's used systematically, and when you are applying that to the industries where it's still able to capture all the complexity. But for more advanced industries which have new attributes as codependence, platform effects, and ecosystems, this is not the best tool.
All right, but in our next episode, we'll cover SCP analysis to deal with the competition in the industry, because that's still the missing piece. Meanwhile, if you like this episode, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, and also turn on your alerts so you don't miss a future episode. And if you have any feedback or questions you want us to answer, feel free to write them down there, and we'll be happy to cover them for you. Meanwhile, head to reddal.com. If you like what you heard here, we have more writings on strategy and business building over there.
All right, guys, stay sharp, stay critical, and when doing strategy, remember to drive fact-based insights and recommendations. Until next time, cheers.
Cheers.